two of the most important things that have accelerated. One is digital transformation, and the second most important thing is the conversation around climate and the need for urgency around climate. Transformation at scale cannot be done without the government and without policy changes, because the shift towards sustainability means that the way we grow our food needs to change. Sustainability at one level scares a lot of people because it's about rethinking the way we've grown up, rethinking our entire lives. But there's another way to look at sustainability. It's also to look at sustainability as the biggest opportunity of our times. I have always believed that there is no magic bullet to anything. Right? So anybody who believes that hydrogen will solve our entire world's problems, or fusion suddenly will emerge as this big solution, or the fact of the matter is that EVs are the answer. Climate transformation is likely to be a people-driven change.
Exactly.
It's not going to be a change because somebody suddenly decides that climate change is a crisis at senior levels in governments or in organizations.
So we are back with yet another episode on Green Heroes of India, and today we have a very special guest who has worked with a few major global and Indian companies over the last 20 years to design their business responsibility strategies across sustainability, climate change, and organization. I'd like to welcome Namrata Rana, Director Futurescape on Vision Board. Welcome, Namrata, on Vision Board.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
So Namrata, my first question is that sustainability right now is a buzzword, and across whether it's a political summit or corporate summit, everyone is talking about it, and it'll also be considered as a big differentiator for the companies to take that path. So what are the top mega trends that you are seeing across the world?
Arindam, I'd like to just talk about what's happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
If you were to just look at the last 2 years and the era before the previous 2 years, things are dramatically different. So there was some trends that were still there, but in the last 2 years, and for whatever reason, they have accelerated. So two of the most important things that have accelerated, one is digital transformation, and the second most important thing is the conversation around climate and the need for urgency around climate. So before the pandemic, there were murmurs about the climate. People were talking about, things are difficult, things might get worse, and the IPCC report was still being read and debated, corporate strategies were being discussed, but there was very little action on ground. There was also very little action in the political circles. There was also very little agreement on what exactly needed to be done. Also, conversations pre-pandemic were largely around compliance. Okay, we need to now generate a XYZ report for whatever reason, for our exporters, for our investors. But now people are saying that report is just not enough.
Yeah.
What is it that you are doing to intrinsically transform the nature of your business? And a similar conversation is happening around digital transformation, where people are saying that your entire business model is under question, is up for grabs because of various things that are happening. And these two converging trends is really the biggest transformative shift of our times.
Okay. And also recently you also published a climate leadership report on Economic Times, and you have highlighted different aspects of net zero emission. So how Indian companies can prepare themselves to achieve this net zero emission, and what is this net zero emission all about?
Okay, between you and me, nothing is net zero, right? Because just the very fact that, we are talking online, we are at the moment in our rooms with, electricity on,
Yes.
and we are doing various things. essentially means that we are emitting carbon as we speak. So everything that we do, every car ride, every internet search, every book that we read emits carbon. Because all products and services, if you ship them around, right, no matter where they are made, right, are all carbon emitting. That's the nature of our world, right? The entire world has transformed because we've been able to harness energy.
Exactly.
Now,
But
please.
as I mentioned that, I agree that whatever that we're doing, it's emitting carbon. But how to reduce that? Because we can see that, how, all of our witnessing our environment changes. And especially, that when, when we're thinking that, India will become a manufacturing hub, then at least what are the, top measures or the, that at least we can control that part.
And that's a very deep question. So it's not as simple as saying that let's switch to renewable energy. That's one of the transformative shifts that a lot of Indian organizations are making and have already made. So renewable energy has not just entered the corporate boardrooms, but it is here to stay and is only going to expand its footprint. So our climate leadership report basically highlights the fact that almost all of India's top 100 companies are now looking at decarbonization in a deep way. So it's not just about saying that let's talk about what our carbon footprint is. So GHG emissions, as you know, there are 3 levels to these. One is scope 1 and scope 2, and the third is, what my supply chain is doing, which is largely about scope 3. So all organizations uniformly, whether they disclose their emissions or not, are capturing this data. They are looking at what is it that I am doing in terms of reducing my own footprint within my organization, within my offices, within my factories, and what are the next steps around it. But the next steps around it essentially mean that you need to evaluate your products and services in a fundamental way. That what kind of materials are being used to manufacture this specific product that I supply to my customers. What happens to this product when my customer uses it? Does it biodegrade or does it lie there forever? Say, for example, every toothbrush ever made still exists because it's made of plastic. It's something as simple as that. Every morning we get up and we use a product that is actually hugely wasteful and very, very polluting. That's the first thing that all of us do every morning.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Every tube of toothpaste, how biodegradable is it? So, we begin our day by doing a lot of things, and therefore there needs to be a fundamental transformation, not just in personal lives, but in corporate lives and in corporate decision making. And that is the transformative shift that we are doing. And that's what the climate leadership report also seeks to highlight, saying that there is a strategic transformation that is being made, which goes far deeper than what just meets the eye.
Yeah, you are right that we start a day with the brush and without that because see another aspect is that that we're pushing companies to be net zero or sustainable, whatever XYZ, but at the same time as a consumer are we aware of it fact or consciously we're taking those steps. So do you see that government also that we can see there's so many government policies and initiative they're taking in different aspects. Do you see the similar the thing is happening in the sustainability space where they're talking to masses as well as all the corporate side?
See, transformation at scale cannot be done without the government and without policy changes, because the shift towards sustainability means that the way we grow our food needs to change, right? What does that mean? It means that every bit of product that is grown needs to use less water, right? It certainly needs to be more localized than what it is at the moment. And that needs intervention. It also needs renewable energy. The second thing is the way we make everything needs to change. So if we talk about the way we grow food and if we talk about the way we manufacture things, that's a big transformative shift. At the same time, people have made investments in uh, a lot of traditional energy sources
Yeah.
and machinery and equipment that runs on those sources. So the transformative shift from older forms of energy, which is coal and oil, and cannot necessarily be made overnight and cannot be done without incentives. The other part is that the way we actually transport everything needs to change. If we change our entire transportation system, again, for people who have made investments in that, we can't really change that without government support and without incentives for new forms of energy, new forms of transportation systems based around electricity and other new energy formats that are going to emerge.
But I feel that will take lots of innovations. Do you see that, like even like when you see that, the startups, they're coming in, they're doing, great innovations in the technology space. Do you see that, the newest startups, they're also, working on this space? Like, for example, logistics, completely how it can be transformed and aligned to the sustainability goal. Do you see those kind of innovations happening? India as well as in the world, that entrepreneurs, those are willing to, drive the business in this path.
Sustainability at one level scares a lot of people because it's about rethinking
Yeah.
the way we've grown up, rethinking our entire lives. But there's another way to look at sustainability. It's also to look at sustainability as the biggest opportunity of our times. Every transformative shift also brings new opportunity and new ways of doing things. So every large company needs to be an innovation factory. Every startup
Yeah.
needs to think, how can we do this differently? It's likely to be a time of great innovation and great transformation as we actually navigate this space. And trust me, we are going to be in this space for some time. We are here, we're not going to be able to solve this problem.
Yeah.
But I have great hope in human ingenuity, in our ability to think strategically, tactically, and use the human brain to actually, do some really deep innovation, because a lot of things are because the wrong materials are being used.
Yeah.
A lot of things that exist at the moment are because our processes are wrong. And the third reason that a lot of things exist and we are in this crisis is simply because of poor design. So if we break down this really big, massive problem of climate change into smaller buckets and say, what is it that we can do with materials? What is it that we can do with processes? And what is it that we can do with new innovative design? A lot of things can change.
Agree. And now currently the new trend on the EV. What's your point of view on it? That how long it will take? Now we're just reading an article that EV, okay, it's just shifting the focus to another country, because the countries who will be producing the batteries, that will also create lots of environmental hazards. So what's your point of view on it? That in one way we're saying that okay, that it's a renewable energy, and the other way we're going to produce lots of batteries, and which will also have the carbon emission and all those stuff.
Arindam, I have always believed that there is no magic bullet to anything. Right? So anybody who believes that hydrogen will solve our entire world's problems, or fusion suddenly will emerge as this big solution, or the fact of the matter is that EVs are the answer, or solar energy is the way to go.
Yeah.
They all are. And if we start thinking, if we start doing reductionist thinking, saying that one solution will solve all our problems, it will not. EVs will certainly but clean up our cities.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of, if we were to actually look at where carbon is emitted the most, a lot of it is in our cities. the biggest cities in the world, if we were to just address that, if we were to look at the problem in a different way and say, let's just look at cities and decarbonize all the biggest cities, we would actually have the problem under control to a very large extent.
Yeah, completely agree.
So that is one way of looking at things, but we need to adopt a particular approach, which is a systems thinking approach. Start thinking of everything as a system. That what will happen to the EVs at end of life? What will happen to the batteries? Where will the materials come from? What will happen to our existing transportation system? Right? What will happen to all these cars that exist? All the carbon that has been used to manufacture them, and then suddenly they will go out of commission. What will happen to that? So one of the biggest discussions that is happening the world over is the risk of stranded assets, which essentially means that investments that have been made in older forms of energy or machinery or equipment or infrastructure. What are we going to do with that when new things emerge? So a systems thinking approach is required, and of course solutions like EV and hydrogen are certainly good things to look at, but not the only ones.
The only one. Now, we're talking about the net zero sustainability. Do you see that only the large companies they're implementing, or you see the same trends and same level of awareness is already there in different clusters, which is spread across tier 2, tier 3 cities? Because if you see that over 70% of manufacturing units they're spread across different part of India. Do you see any conversation happening in those clusters as well?
Arindam, I'd like to answer this problem, answer your question in a slightly different way. So, by saying that the people who decided to discuss this the first were European companies, and Europe has really taken the lead in looking at sustainability at scale and looking at the climate crisis also, which essentially meant that a lot of companies that purchased products from India and were based out of Europe started demanding that of Indian exporters. Now, Indian exporters therefore started looking at what are my scope 1 emissions, what are my scope 2 emissions, and now European companies are saying, hey, you need to look at your scope 3 emissions, which is your supply chain emissions. Now, supply chain is made up of hundreds of smaller organizations. And when you start looking at green supply chains, the people that these large companies buy from also buy from somebody else. So when you look at creating change and transformative changes across the board, that is how change begins to happen and will eventually go deeper. So it's not a matter of, some supply chains will become green faster. Some may take a little bit more time, and also the transformative changes are also going to depend on geographies. Right? As well as government support, and as well as everything else around the supporting ecosystem. That is how we need to look at it in a more careful, in a more nuanced kind of a way than what we've done at the moment. And part of that is also discussed in our climate leadership report, where we talk about how energy efficiency is becoming part of decarbonization, how companies are shifting to renewable energy sources, how waste and wastewater is part of decarbonization roadmaps, and so on. So there is a lot to be discussed, a lot to be decoded, and different strategies to be adopted for different kinds of supply chains.
Yeah, great. And the same trend, Namrata, we see on the technology adoption as well. That when for example, that if Hero is as a brand, and they have the supply chain spread across different clusters, when they are saying that okay, they want certain technology innovation automatically passed down to all the suppliers across the different, they are bound to implement those technology or digital transformations, rather I would call it. So similar trend I believe that
absolutely, because sustainability needs
top
technology to scale.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
These are not two parallel tracks.
Mm,
It's part of the same narrative and must be part of the same narrative, because we can't, everything is, as I said earlier, at a very small level, at a very
mm,
micro level, everything emits carbon. So if we start saying that we will localize and we will do everything at a small level,
mm,
then no transformative changes will be made and companies will find it difficult to scale. But the
mm,
minute you start looking at transformative changes within the supply chain, you need to look at technology adoption. You also need to look at digitization. You also need to look at processes, and you need to look at different metrics that
mm.
need to be adopted to actually measure that impact and transform it on the fly, because innovation is also happening very, very fast
Yes,
in many different areas.
exactly, exactly. Now, in your report, you talked about that, some part of, that economic opportunity for the organization, if they, get into renewable energy. Can you just share a few of your, that, pointers from this report? How this, it's opportunity for the companies as well, uh, if they take this, path.
Absolutely. So, green products and services are the new areas in which companies are finding opportunity, because
Mm,
the financial world is supporting green products and services. Customers want green products and services, and what they want is not just a label that says that I'm either decarbonized, or
mm,
it's green because we're doing some good for the world. They actually
yeah.
want to go deeper and say, fine, this food product that you're giving me, where did it actually come from?
Mm,
This particular material that you say of this shirt, if you say that it is organic cotton, is it really organic cotton? Can you prove it to me? So people are not willing to take statements,
mm,
but they're willing to actually go the extra mile, question you, and actually even reward. Now,
mm,
for the longest time, this customers said that they wanted green products and services, but they were not willing to reward companies with premiums for it.
yes.
But
True. Very true.
now the trend is steadily shifting. So if you look at food, if you and there people just not just want it, they actually reward you for it as well. Beauty again. So there are different sectors and different categories where people are saying that I want green, yes,
Yeah.
and I will reward the company with my time, with my effort, and with maybe even a green premium.
Mm, mm. Interesting. Interesting. So, my last question, Namrata, that, was the top three, predictions, from you, or you see that, which is happening, in a recent future.
Arindam, I think that this climate transformation is likely to be a people-driven change.
Mm,
It's
exactly.
not going to be a change because somebody suddenly decides that climate change is a
Yeah.
crisis at senior levels in governments or in
Mm,
organizations. This transformative shift will be driven by people at scale wanting to genuinely transform their lives.
completely agree. Yeah.
And the second thing that I really believe is that processes and skills will also drive this change. So it's
Mm,
not just going to be that people want something new and companies will deliver it. It will be that there will be new processes in organizations, and they will also need new skills to
mm,
drive this change. It's not as if that the way things were done in the past is going to are going to continue in
mm,
the
mm.
future. And the third bit is that innovation is really the need of the hour. And so anybody who can think differently, do differently, and design things in fundamentally different ways are going to be actually be in a lot of demand.
Great. So we should, encourage more and more, companies or the startups to think in that angle, because yeah, so because all of us as an individual, we're seeing that, what's the how with like environmental changes, and it's impacting the agriculture, it's impacting the air. We are staying in the north part of India, so we see that, that changes. So great, Namrata. Thank you for your time and sharing, your thoughts. It's a very, very interesting conversation, and definitely our audience will get to learn some interesting aspects around this sustainability with the topic.
My pleasure entirely, Arindam. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.